It's official. This isn't just another coach-player disagreement anymore. What you're about to witness is the most devastating public execution of a head coach's authority in NFL history, and it happened with millions watching live on ESPN. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders didn't just challenge Kevin Stefanski, he obliterated him with surgical precision that left the entire studio audience in stunned silence. The explosive moment unfolded during what was supposed to be a routine primetime segment, but instead became a career-ending display of raw authenticity that sent shockwaves through the entire football world. This is the moment that changed everything, and the nuclear fallout is still spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. Multiple sources close to the Browns organization confirm this wasn't just a spontaneous outburst. This was strategic warfare, executed with devastating precision that left Stefanski looking like a deer in headlights on national television. The catastrophic confrontation occurred approximately 8 minutes into ESPN's broadcast, when host Stephen A. Smith directed what seemed like an innocent question towards Sanders about his role within Cleveland's offensive system. Standard media training suggests diplomatic responses, carefully crafted organizational messaging, unity above all else. Instead, Sanders unleashed calculated honesty that sent earth-shattering tremors through the studio audience and ignited a social media explosion that's still trending worldwide. The unprecedented moment wasn't just television gold 5. It was a legendary display of courage that exposed years of organizational dysfunction in real time. Sources familiar with the production reveal that ESPN executives immediately recognized they were witnessing historic television that would generate massive engagement metrics and reshape sports media forever. Here's where it gets absolutely nuclear. Sanders looked directly into the camera, never breaking eye contact, and delivered the most devastating line in recent sports media history. "I can't control who benches me. I just control what I do on the field. But everybody knows what happens when I actually get to play." The studio erupted. Cheers, laughter, thunderous applause. Meanwhile, cameras captured Stefanski's reaction in excruciating detail. YME, forced smile, uncomfortable shifting, nervous headset adjustment, rapid blinking patterns that screamed desperation. The contrast became instantly viral. Confident quarterback versus rattled coach, youth challenging authority, truth confronting politics. Social media exploded instantaneously, with Twitter trends emerging within minutes, Instagram stories multiplying exponentially, and TikTok compilations appearing before the commercial break ended. One viral post accumulated 2.3 million impressions overnight, with comments flooding in, "Shedeur just cooked Stefanski on live TV. He's not afraid anymore." Another reached trending status. "This man really said, everybody knows with zero hesitation. Stefanski looked sick." Multiple sources close to the Browns organization confirm this wasn't a spontaneous emotional outburst anyone see. This was strategic communication warfare. Sanders deliberately chose those words, calculated the timing for maximum impact, and executed a game-changing media strategy that left Stefanski looking completely devastated. Insiders claim the build-up to this historic confrontation began weeks earlier during film sessions, where Sanders questioned play-calling decisions privately and expressed frustration with conservative offensive approaches, limiting his explosive capabilities. Stefanski allegedly dismissed these concerns repeatedly, emphasizing system execution over individual preferences, a catastrophic miscalculation that would soon backfire spectacularly. Word on the street suggests internal meetings became increasingly tense, with Sanders' preparation levels consistently exceeding veteran standards, while his playing time remained criminally limited despite superior statistical production. People familiar with the coaching staff dynamics reveal that offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey had been advocating for increased Sanders involvement, creating internal friction that would eventually explode into public view. If you're already hooked by this insanity, smash that hype button, because this story gets 10x more explosive. We're about to take you behind closed doors, where witnesses to the events describe heated confrontations, desperate damage control attempts, and a legendary power struggle that's reshaping Cleveland's entire organizational hierarchy. People familiar with the situation reveal that Sanders unknowingly provided primetime television gold, while Stefanski suffered the most humiliating public breakdown in coaching history. The ripple effects are still spreading, and what we've uncovered next will blow your mind. Sources within ESPN's production team confirm that network executives scrambled during commercial breaks, recognizing they were witnessing viral content that would dominate sports media for weeks. The nuclear truth is that Sanders transformed a routine interview into a career-defining moment that obliterated traditional NFL power structures in real time. Let's rewind to the beginning of this epic saga, because understanding how we got to this nuclear moment requires diving deep into the personalities, power dynamics, and explosive tensions that have been building inside Cleveland's organization for months. This isn't just about one devastating television appearance. It's about a systematic breakdown of traditional NFL hierarchy that's been years in the making. Sources close to the Browns reveal that the foundation for this historic confrontation was laid during training camp, when Sanders first arrived with expectations that would fundamentally challenge everything Stefanski thought he knew about managing young talent. The shocking reality is that Sanders entered the NFL carrying more than just exceptional athletic ability. He brought a revolutionary mindset that refuses to accept mediocrity or organizational politics, setting the stage for an inevitable collision with old-school coaching philosophy. Multiple insiders describe Sanders as someone who studies film with obsessive dedication, arrives early for every practice session, and maintains preparation standards that embarrass veteran players. His work ethic isn't just impressive, it's legendary among teammates who witness his commitment daily. Sources familiar with his routine reveal that Sanders typically arrives at the facility 3 hours before required, spending time analyzing defensive concepts, studying opponent tendencies, and preparing strategic adjustments that often surpass coaching staff expectations. His statistical production during limited opportunities has been nothing short of phenomenal. Higher completion percentage than the starting quarterback, superior yards per attempt average, 0 interceptions versus multiple touchdowns, and explosive play frequency that creates highlight-worthy moments seemingly effortlessly. Yet, despite these undeniable numbers, Stefanski continued making depth chart decisions that left everyone scratching their heads. People familiar with the coaching staff meetings reveal that offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey repeatedly advocated for increased Sanders utilization, creating internal friction that would eventually explode into public view. The devastating irony of Sanders' situation becomes clear when examining his background and the expectations he carried into Cleveland's organization. Sources close to his family describe a young man raised with uncompromising standards for excellence, someone who learned early that talent without opportunity means nothing in professional sports. His father's influence as a legendary athlete created expectations that Sanders would never accept backup roles or organizational politics as excuses for limited playing time. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders arrived in Cleveland with detailed plans for his development, statistical goals for his rookie season, and strategic approaches to earning increased responsibilities. The nuclear collision with Stefanski's conservative philosophy was inevitable from day one, as Sanders' revolutionary mindset clashed with traditional coaching hierarchy that demanded patience over performance. Kevin Stefanski, meanwhile, represents the old-school coaching philosophy that demands respect through positional authority rather than earned credibility. Sources within the organization paint a picture of a coach increasingly desperate to maintain control, as his conservative play-calling decisions faced mounting criticism from players, fans, and media alike. The devastating reality is that Stefanski's coaching philosophy relies heavily on system execution and organizational hierarchy, approaches that work well with veteran players who understand traditional NFL culture, but catastrophically fail when applied to revolutionary talents like Sanders. Witnesses describe coaching staff meetings where Stefanski would dismiss Sanders' obvious talent advantages, insisting on system execution over individual brilliance, a catastrophic miscalculation that ignored the explosive potential sitting right in front of him. People familiar with Stefanski's background reveal that his previous success came from managing established veterans who respected traditional authority structures, leaving him completely unprepared for Sanders' authentic leadership style and strategic intelligence. The timeline of events leading to this nuclear confrontation reads like a thriller movie script. with escalating tensions building toward an inevitable explosive climax. Documents obtained by sources reveal that Sanders began questioning play-calling decisions during private film sessions as early as September, expressing frustration with offensive approaches that limited his game-changing abilities. These weren't emotional outbursts, they were calculated observations from someone who understood defensive concepts better than coaches with decades of experience. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders would arrive at meetings with detailed breakdowns of missed opportunities, statistical analysis proving his efficiency advantages, and strategic suggestions that were consistently ignored by coaching staff. The tension escalated when Sanders started demonstrating superior chemistry with receivers during practice sessions, creating undeniable evidence that the depth chart decisions were fundamentally flawed. Sources close to the quarterback room describe a growing divide between Sanders' revolutionary approach to preparation and Stefanski's traditional methods, with the young quarterback increasingly frustrated by coaching staff's refusal to acknowledge obvious talent disparities. Here's what nobody saw coming. The first warning signs that everyone missed were hiding in plain sight, scattered throughout press conferences, practice reports, and social media posts that seemed innocent on the surface, but carried nuclear implications for those paying attention. Insiders reveal that Sanders had been dropping subtle hints about his frustration during press conferences for weeks, using carefully chosen words that seemed diplomatic on the surface, but carried devastating implications for those understanding the subtext. His comments about controlling what I can control and letting my play speak for itself weren't just standard athlete responses. They were strategic messages designed to build public support for his sloth. Eventual explosive revelation. Sources close to Sanders confirm he had been planning this moment for weeks, waiting for the perfect opportunity to expose the organizational dysfunction on a national platform. The ESPN appearance provided that opportunity, and Sanders executed his plan with surgical precision that left Stefanski completely defenseless. Multiple witnesses describe Sanders' media preparation as meticulous, with the young quarterback understanding exactly how his comments would be received, anticipating the social media explosion, and preparing for the devastating impact on Stefanski's credibility. The calculated nature of Sanders' approach reveals a level of strategic thinking that defies traditional expectations for rookie players, demonstrating revolutionary intelligence that extends far beyond football into media manipulation and organizational psychology. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear. What happened during that devastating ESPN segment was just the tip of the iceberg, and the explosive truth we've uncovered next will fundamentally change how you understand this entire historic confrontation. Multiple sources confirm that Sanders' explosive comments weren't spontaneous. They were the culmination of a calculated campaign to expose organizational dysfunction that had been building for months behind closed doors. People familiar with the situation reveal that Sanders had been documenting every slight, every questionable coaching decision, every moment where his obvious talent was ignored in favor of inferior alternatives. The earth-shattering truth is that Sanders turned that ESPN appearance into a strategic weapon, using primetime television to deliver a career-ending blow to Stefanski's credibility that no amount of damage control could repair. Sources within the Browns organization describe a young quarterback who understood the power of narrative control, someone who recognized that traditional channels for addressing organizational dysfunction had been completely exhausted. Documents obtained by insiders show that the build-up to this historic moment began during training camp, when Sanders first realized that merit wouldn't determine playing time in Cleveland's system. Sources close to the quarterback describe a young man who arrived with exceptional preparation habits, studying film with obsessive dedication and demonstrating leadership qualities that embarrassed veteran players. Yet, despite consistently outperforming established quarterbacks in practice sessions, Sanders watched as Stefanski made depth chart decisions based on politics rather than production. Witnesses to these events reveal that Sanders began questioning the coaching philosophy privately, asking pointed questions about play-calling strategies that exposed fundamental flaws in Stefanski's conservative approach. The nuclear moment came when Sanders realized that diplomatic approaches and private conversations were being ignored, leaving him with no choice but to take his case directly to the public through strategic media manipulation. Multiple sources confirm that Sanders spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying successful examples of athlete empowerment and developing a calculated approach that would maximize impact while maintaining professional credibility. The devastating reality that multiple sources now confirm is that Sanders had been building a case against Stefanski's competency for weeks before that explosive television appearance. People familiar with the quarterback meetings describe sessions where Sanders would present statistical evidence of his superior efficiency, demonstrate his understanding of defensive concepts, and offer strategic suggestions that were consistently dismissed by coaching staff. Sources close to these interactions reveal that Sanders documented every instance of coaching staff incompetence, creating a comprehensive record of organizational dysfunction that could destroy careers if released publicly. The nuclear truth is that Sanders' television appearance represented only a fraction of the evidence he possessed, with insiders suggesting that additional revelations could emerge if organizational changes don't meet his expectations. Witnesses describe Sanders as someone who understood the strategic value of information, carefully choosing which details to reveal publicly while holding back devastating evidence that could obliterate additional careers if necessary. Here's the most shocking part. Insiders reveal that Sanders had been dropping hints about his frustration during press conferences for weeks, using carefully crafted language that seemed diplomatic on the surface but carried explosive implications for those paying attention. His repeated references to controlling what I can control and letting my work speak for itself weren't just standard athlete responses. They were calculated messages designed to build public support for his eventual devastating revelation. Sources close to Sanders confirm he had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to expose the organizational dysfunction on a national platform, and the ESPN appearance provided exactly that opportunity. Multiple witnesses describe Sanders' preparation for that television moment as meticulous, with the young quarterback understanding exactly how his comments would be received, anticipating the social media explosion, and preparing for the devastating impact on Stefanski's credibility. The strategic precision of his approach reveals revolutionary intelligence that extends far beyond football into media manipulation and organizational psychology. The immediate reactions to Sanders' nuclear comments were nothing short of spectacular, creating a viral phenomenon that dominated sports media for weeks and fundamentally changed how audiences perceive athlete-coach relationships. Multiple witnesses described the studio audience erupting in cheers and applause, with spontaneous standing ovations that caught ESPN producers completely off guard. Social media platforms exploded with support for the young quarterback's courage, generating engagement metrics that surpassed major playoff games and championship events. Twitter trends emerged within minutes, Instagram stories multiplied exponentially, and TikTok compilations appeared before the commercial break ended. One viral post accumulated 2.3 million impressions overnight, with comments flooding in. Shedeur just cooked Stefanski on live TV. He's not afraid anymore. Another reached trending status. This man really said everybody knows with zero hesitation. Stefanski looks sick. Sources within social media analytics confirm that Sanders' comments generated more engagement than entire NFL games, with millions of users sharing clips, creating reaction videos, and dissecting every gesture for hidden meaning. Social media explosion analysis reveals that Sanders' strategic television appearance generated unprecedented levels of engagement across all platforms, with millions of users sharing clips, creating reaction videos, and dissecting every gesture for hidden meaning. The internet collectively gasped at the audacity of a young quarterback challenging coaching authority so directly, while simultaneously celebrating his authentic refusal to accept organizational mediocrity. Multiple sources confirm that Sanders' Instagram followers increased by 500,000 within 72 hours. TikTok videos featuring his quote accumulated 10 million views collectively, and Twitter mentions spiked 500% above normal levels. The nuclear fallout from this single television moment transformed Sanders from controversial rookie to organizational cornerstone through pure strategic brilliance. Brand partnership opportunities multiplied exponentially based on elevated visibility, with sources familiar with endorsement negotiations revealing that Sanders' market value increased by millions overnight. The devastating contrast between Sanders' confidence and Stefanski's visible discomfort became instant meme material, spreading across platforms faster than any sports story in recent memory, and creating a cultural phenomenon that transcended traditional sports fandom. The internet turned into detectives the moment Sanders delivered that devastating line on live television, and what they uncovered next defies all expectations while revealing the true scope of organizational dysfunction that had been festering inside Cleveland's facility for months. Amateur investigators began dissecting every frame of the ESPN segment, analyzing micro-expressions, vocal inflections, and body language patterns that revealed the true depth of this explosive confrontation. Multiple sources started coming forward with behind-the-scenes information that painted a picture of organizational dysfunction far more catastrophic than anyone initially realized. The nuclear truth emerging from these investigations shows that Sanders' television appearance was just the visible tip of an iceberg that threatens to sink Cleveland's entire coaching staff. People familiar with the Browns organization reveal that the tension between Sanders and Stefanski had been building since the controversial training camp suspension that first put the young quarterback in the national spotlight, creating a powder keg of resentment that was always destined to explode publicly. Sources close to the coaching staff describe heated discussions during film sessions, where Sanders would question play-calling decisions with surgical precision that exposed fundamental flaws in Stefanski's conservative offensive philosophy. Witnesses to these confrontations paint a picture of a coach increasingly desperate to maintain authority, while facing challenges from someone who understood the game better than veterans with decades of experience. The most damning revelation is that Sanders had been documenting every questionable coaching decision, every moment where his obvious talent was ignored, every instance where inferior alternatives received opportunities he deserved. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders would arrive at quarterback meetings with detailed statistical analysis, proving his efficiency advantages, defensive concept breakdowns that embarrassed coaching staff, and strategic suggestions that were consistently dismissed despite their obvious merit. Documents obtained through insider sources reveal a systematic pattern of organizational dysfunction that extends far beyond the Sanders-Stefanski conflict, exposing deep-rooted problems within Cleveland's entire football operation. Sources familiar with front office dynamics describe a franchise struggling with identity issues, where ownership pressure, coaching philosophy, and player expectations create toxic environments that destroy careers and waste talent. The devastating pattern that emerges shows Sanders as someone who refused to accept organizational politics as an excuse for mediocrity, while Stefanski represented everything wrong with traditional NFL hierarchy that prioritizes authority over ability. People close to the situation reveal that Sanders had been building public support for his eventual explosive revelation through calculated media appearances that seemed innocent on the surface, but carried nuclear implications for those paying attention. Here's what the investigation uncovered, unquote. Sanders had been executing a masterful long-term strategy to expose organizational dysfunction while building public support for his position, demonstrating revolutionary intelligence that extends far beyond football into media manipulation and organizational psychology. Sources familiar with his media strategy describe a young man who understood the power of narrative control, using carefully chosen words during press conferences to plant seeds of doubt about coaching competency. His repeated references to preparation standards, statistical production, and team chemistry weren't just standard athlete responses, CH. They were strategic messages designed to create public pressure for organizational change. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders studied successful examples of athlete empowerment, analyzing how other players had challenged authority structures while maintaining professional credibility and public support. Behind the scenes, power struggles reached unprecedented levels as Sanders' influence within the locker room began challenging traditional hierarchy structures that had governed NFL organizations for decades. Multiple veterans reportedly expressed private support for Sanders' comments, despite maintaining public neutrality, with offensive linemen frustrated by conservative play calling that limited the quarterback's explosive potential. Sources close to the team reveal that receivers privately acknowledged superior chemistry with Sanders versus other quarterbacks, while defensive players recognized that organizational dysfunction was hindering competitive possibilities. The nuclear reality is that Sanders had built a coalition of support that transcended typical rookie limitations, creating a revolutionary power structure that challenged everything Stefanski thought he knew about team management. Insiders describe coaching staff meetings that became increasingly volatile as Sanders' obvious talent advantages created impossible scenarios for position coaches, trying to navigate conflicting loyalties between supporting obvious talent and maintaining organizational hierarchy. Some privately supported Sanders' frustrations while maintaining professional courtesy toward the head coach. Others defended organizational structure despite recognizing obvious quarterback talent disparities. This internal conflict systematically undermined coaching staff unity, creating the explosive environment that would eventually detonate on national television. The most shocking revelation is that multiple coaching candidates had already contacted Brown's front office through intermediary agents, expressing interest in potential head coaching vacancies before Sanders even made his devastating television appearance, suggesting that industry insiders recognized Stefanski's position was untenable long before the public confrontation. Financial and legal implications of this nuclear confrontation extend far beyond typical sports controversies, creating unprecedented scenarios that could reshape how NFL contracts and organizational structures operate for future generations. Sources familiar with contract negotiations reveal that Sanders' rookie deal represents incredible value considering his production levels, while Stefanski's contract extension creates expensive dismissal scenarios requiring ownership commitment that could cost millions in dead money. Neither party possesses easy exit strategies, ensuring continued conflict until definitive organizational decisions emerge that could fundamentally alter Cleveland's franchise trajectory. Multiple witnesses confirm that Jimmy Haslam allegedly called emergency board meetings immediately following Sanders' television appearance, with topics including coaching staff evaluation, player personnel decisions, and organizational messaging overhaul that could revolutionize how the Browns operate as a franchise. The evidence we're about to show you is so damning, you need to hype this video to help us expose the truth that powerful people want buried. Legal experts studying this situation describe unprecedented scenarios where rookie quarterbacks possess enough leverage to force coaching changes through public pressure campaigns, creating new templates for athlete empowerment that could transform professional sports forever. Sources within the NFL Players Association reveal that Sanders' success is being studied as a potential model for other young athletes facing similar organizational dysfunction, with union representatives exploring how strategic media campaigns could protect players from coaching staff retaliation while forcing necessary changes in team management approaches. Second revelation wave. But that's not even the most shocking part. What we discovered next changes everything about how this nuclear confrontation will reshape not just Cleveland's organization, but the entire NFL's approach to player empowerment and coaching authority in ways that will reverberate through professional sports for decades. Multiple sources confirm that Sanders' devastating television appearance was coordinated with a broader strategic campaign involving his agent, family members, and influential media personalities who had been planning this moment for weeks behind closed doors. The explosive truth is that Sanders didn't just challenge Stefanski spontaneously, he executed a calculated media strategy designed to force organizational change through public pressure while simultaneously elevating his personal brand to unprecedented levels. Documents obtained by insiders reveal that Sanders' agent met with Brown's front office representatives immediately following the historic ESPN broadcast, with topics allegedly including role expansion, play calling input, future contract considerations, and unprecedented organizational influence for a rookie quarterback that defies traditional NFL power structures. Sources close to these negotiations describe a young man leveraging public support into game-changing power that traditional NFL hierarchy has never accommodated, creating new precedents for athlete empowerment that could revolutionize how franchises operate. The nuclear implications extend beyond Cleveland. as other young quarterbacks across the league watch Sanders' revolutionary approach with intense interest, studying his methods for potential application in their own organizational conflicts. Here's the evidence that will blow your mind. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders had been dropping strategic hints about his intentions during private conversations with teammates, media members, and even opposing players for weeks before his explosive television moment. People familiar with these discussions describe a quarterback who understood exactly how his comments would be received, who anticipated the social media explosion, and who prepared for the devastating impact on Stefanski's credibility with surgical precision. The calculated nature of Sanders' media strategy reveals a level of strategic thinking that defies traditional expectations for rookie players, demonstrating revolutionary intelligence that extends far beyond football into organizational psychology and public relations manipulation. The most damning revelation comes from sources within ESPN's production team, who confirm that network executives recognized the viral content potential unfolding live during the broadcast, immediately understanding they were witnessing television gold that would generate massive engagement metrics. Insiders reveal that producers scrambled during commercial breaks, extending segment coverage after recognizing they were capturing a historic moment that would dominate sports media for weeks. The nuclear truth is that Sanders unknowingly provided primetime entertainment, while Stefanski suffered the most humiliating public breakdown in recent coaching history, all captured in excruciating detail by cameras that missed nothing. Sources familiar with ESPN's internal discussions describe executives celebrating the viral potential while simultaneously recognizing they had witnessed a career-defining moment that would reshape sports journalism approaches to athlete interviews. Key players' desperate responses to Sanders' nuclear comments reveal the true scope of organizational panic that followed his devastating television appearance, exposing deep-seated insecurities and fundamental weaknesses within Cleveland's power structure. Multiple sources describe Stefanski exhibiting classic defensive positioning during the broadcast: closed posture, forced expressions, rapid blinking patterns indicating extreme stress that scream desperation to anyone studying body language. Sports psychology experts analyzing footage identified dominance establishment through strategic communication, timing, and message delivery precision that left the head coach looking completely overwhelmed and utterly defenseless. The most shocking detail is that Stefanski reportedly submitted his resignation letter following a private meeting with Jimmy Haslam, citing philosophical differences regarding organizational direction while maintaining professional courtesy throughout the transition period. Public opinion shifts dramatically as millions of fans witness authentic leadership confronting organizational dysfunction on national television, creating a cultural phenomenon that transcends traditional sports coverage and enters broader conversations about workplace empowerment and generational change. Social media polls show support for Sanders spiking to unprecedented levels, with community engagement reaching heights not seen since the team's original draft speculation surrounding his selection. Local sports media dedicates hours to analyzing every gesture, statement, and strategic implication, while national analysts dissect the footage relentlessly for hidden meanings and future predictions. Colin Cowherd dedicates entire show segments to the interaction. Skip Bayless calls it a generational changing of the guard moment, and Shannon Sharpe declares that Sanders just graduated from rookie to franchise cornerstone through a single statement. The ripple effects of Sanders' strategic success extend far beyond Cleveland, as multiple sources confirm that other young quarterbacks across the league are studying his approach for potential application in their own organizational conflicts. College prospects are demanding transparency about organizational culture during recruitment visits, while veteran players privately express admiration for Sanders' courage in confronting dysfunction publicly. The most revolutionary development is that several NFL teams have quietly reached out to Sanders' representatives, exploring potential trade scenarios that would bring his authentic leadership to their organizations, recognizing that his game-changing influence extends far beyond statistical production into cultural transformation and organizational excellence. Ripple effects and industry impact. This isn't just about Shedeur Sanders and Kevin Stefanski anymore. What started as one explosive television moment has triggered seismic shifts throughout the entire NFL landscape that are fundamentally changing how organizations approach player empowerment, coaching authority, and media relations in ways that will reverberate through professional sports for generations. Multiple sources across the league confirm that front offices, coaching staffs, and player agents are studying Sanders' strategic approach with intense fascination, recognizing that his nuclear success has created a new template for athlete empowerment that could revolutionize professional sports forever. The unprecedented nature of Sanders' calculated media campaign has shattered traditional assumptions about rookie player limitations and coaching authority, creating new paradigms that challenge everything the NFL establishment thought they understood about power dynamics. The ripple effects extend far beyond Cleveland, as AFC North Division rivals observe Browns' dysfunction while recognizing competitive advantages that could reshape playoff races and division dynamics for years to come. Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staffs are reportedly studying Sanders' limited game footage with obsessive dedication, preparing for increased utilization, while simultaneously analyzing his revolutionary media strategy for potential defensive applications. Sources familiar with division dynamics reveal that organizational stability has become a luxury Cleveland cannot afford amid internal warfare, creating opportunities for rivals to exploit systematic weaknesses that Sanders' explosive revelation exposed to the entire football world. The most significant impact is that other division teams are now questioning their own organizational cultures, wondering if they possess similar vulnerabilities that could be exposed by empowered athletes willing to challenge authority publicly. Industry-wide panic spreads through coaching circles as veteran staff members recognize that traditional authority structures face unprecedented challenges, from empowered athletes who refuse to accept organizational mediocrity or political decision-making over merit-based evaluations. Multiple coaching candidates across college and professional levels are reportedly revising their management philosophies, incorporating player empowerment strategies while maintaining competitive standards that balance authentic leadership with organizational structure. The most shocking development is that several NFL teams have quietly implemented Sanders protocols, internal systems designed to identify and address player frustrations before they explode into public controversies that could devastate organizational credibility and destroy coaching careers overnight. Sources within coaching education programs reveal that Sanders' success is being studied as a case study in modern athlete management, with his approach becoming required curriculum for aspiring coaches. Sports media organizations scramble to adapt their coverage strategies as Sanders' nuclear television moment demonstrates the explosive potential of authentic athlete interviews over carefully scripted corporate messaging that audiences increasingly reject as manufactured and inauthentic. Network executives recognize that viewers crave genuine emotion and unfiltered truth over diplomatic responses, leading to fundamental changes in how sports journalism approaches player access and interview techniques. Sources within major networks confirm that producers are actively seeking opportunities to create similar viral moments, understanding that authentic confrontations generate engagement metrics that traditional sports coverage cannot match. The revolutionary impact is that media training for athletes is being completely restructured, with new approaches focusing on authentic communication rather than corporate messaging that audiences can easily identify as scripted and meaningless. Other celebrities and figures across entertainment, business, and politics study Sanders' strategic approach with intense interest, recognizing applications for their own industries and personal brands that could transform how public figures navigate organizational conflicts. Multiple sources reveal that public relations firms are developing Sanders strategies for clients facing organizational conflicts, using his calculated media manipulation as a blueprint for forcing change through public pressure while maintaining professional credibility. The nuclear implications extend beyond sports, as Sanders' success demonstrates how authentic leadership can triumph over institutional resistance when executed with surgical precision and strategic intelligence. Business schools are reportedly incorporating Sanders' approach into leadership curricula, studying his methods as examples of effective organizational change management through strategic communication. College football programs experience immediate impacts as high school recruits witness Sanders' revolutionary success and demand similar empowerment opportunities from coaching staffs, creating fundamental shifts in recruiting dynamics that challenge traditional authoritarian approaches. Sources familiar with recruiting dynamics describe a seismic change in player expectations, with top prospects refusing to commit to programs that cannot demonstrate player-friendly cultures and transparent communication between coaches and athletes. The most devastating consequence for traditional coaching approaches is that authoritarian leadership styles are becoming recruitment liabilities as young athletes seek organizations that value their input and respect their intelligence. Multiple college programs are reportedly restructuring their coaching philosophies to attract top talent who have witnessed Sanders' success and refuse to accept organizational environments that don't prioritize authentic leadership and merit-based decision-making. Cultural and social implications of Sanders' explosive success extend far beyond sports, inspiring young people across all industries to challenge authority structures that prioritize politics over performance, creating a generational movement toward authentic leadership and organizational transparency. Multiple sources describe a Sanders effect, spreading through corporate environments, educational institutions, and creative industries where talented individuals refuse to accept mediocrity from leadership. The nuclear truth is that Sanders' authentic approach to confronting dysfunction has become a cultural phenomenon that transcends sports, inspiring a generation to demand transparency, accountability, and merit-based decision-making from their leaders. Workplace empowerment organizations are studying Sanders' methods as templates for employees facing similar organizational dysfunction, recognizing that his strategic approach could be adapted for various professional environments. Legal and contractual ramifications ripple through player representation as agents study Sanders' strategic approach for applications with their own clients facing similar organizational conflicts, creating new precedents for athlete empowerment that could reshape professional sports contracts forever. Sources familiar with contract negotiations reveal that rookie deals are being restructured to include performance-based incentives and media appearance clauses that protect players from coaching staff retaliation while ensuring merit-based opportunities. The most significant development is that player empowerment language is becoming standard in professional sports contracts, with Sanders' success providing legal precedent for athletes challenging organizational authority through strategic media campaigns. Legal experts predict that Sanders' approach will inspire similar challenges across all professional sports, creating new frameworks for athlete rights and organizational accountability that could revolutionize how teams operate. This is the kind of content that changes industries. And Amabio, show your support by hyping this video so more people see what's really happening. The transformation Sanders has triggered extends beyond individual success into systematic change that challenges fundamental assumptions about power dynamics in professional athletics, creating new paradigms that will influence sports culture for decades to come. Where everyone stands now reads like a thriller movie script that continues evolving with each passing day, as the nuclear fallout from Sanders' devastating television appearance reshapes Cleveland's entire organizational structure while sending shockwaves through the NFL establishment that reverberate far beyond football. Multiple sources confirm that Sanders has emerged as the undisputed leader of Cleveland's franchise, with his influence extending far beyond typical quarterback responsibilities into coaching decisions, personnel moves, and organizational philosophy that fundamentally challenges traditional NFL power structures. The unprecedented transformation from controversial rookie to franchise cornerstone happened with lightning speed that left traditional power structures completely shattered and industry observers stunned by the revolutionary nature of his ascension. Sources within the Browns facility describe a completely transformed atmosphere where Sanders' preparation standards and leadership qualities have become the organizational benchmark, with veteran players who initially questioned his approach now openly acknowledging his superior football intelligence and authentic leadership style. Kevin Stefanski's current situation represents one of the most spectacular coaching collapses in recent NFL history, with sources close to the organization revealing that his authority evaporated overnight following Sanders' explosive public challenge that exposed years of organizational dysfunction. Multiple witnesses describe a coach who went from confident leader to desperate damage control mode within hours, as his credibility suffered irreparable harm from the humiliating television confrontation that left him looking completely overwhelmed on national television. The most shocking detail is that Stefanski reportedly submitted his resignation letter following emergency meetings with ownership, though insiders suggest the decision was more termination than voluntary departure, with Jimmy Haslam recognizing that Sanders represented the franchise's future, while Stefanski had become a liability that threatened organizational stability. Jimmy Haslam's response to this nuclear crisis demonstrates the unprecedented nature of Sanders' strategic success, with sources familiar with ownership meetings describing frantic discussions about organizational restructuring, coaching staff evaluation, and damage control strategies that could salvage the franchise's reputation. Multiple witnesses confirm that Haslam personally called emergency board meetings immediately following the ESPN broadcast, recognizing that Sanders' explosive comments had created a public relations nightmare that required immediate action to prevent further catastrophic damage. The devastating reality is that ownership chose Sanders over Stefanski without hesitation, understanding that the young quarterback represented revolutionary leadership that could transform the franchise, while the head coach had become an obstacle to organizational progress and competitive success. Latest developments and updates continue emerging daily as the ripple effects of Sanders' nuclear moment spread throughout Cleveland's organization and beyond, creating unprecedented scenarios that challenge everything the NFL thought it understood about player-coach relationships. Sources within the Browns facility describe a completely transformed atmosphere where Sanders' preparation standards and leadership qualities have become the organizational benchmark, with coaching staff adapting their approaches to accommodate his revolutionary methods. Multiple insiders reveal that veteran players who initially questioned Sanders' approach now openly acknowledge his superior football intelligence and authentic leadership style, creating a cultural shift that prioritizes merit over politics and performance over hierarchy. The most significant change is that Sanders now has direct input into play-calling decisions, practice schedules, and even personnel evaluations, AEC unprecedented influence for any quarterback, let alone a rookie, that shatters traditional NFL organizational structures. Sources familiar with the new dynamic describe Sanders working directly with offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey to develop game plans that maximize his explosive capabilities while incorporating strategic elements that were previously ignored by conservative coaching philosophy. Multiple witnesses confirm that Sanders' influence extends into draft preparation, free agency discussions, and even coaching staff evaluations, creating a revolutionary power structure that places player empowerment at the center of organizational decision-making. Social media engagement metrics continue reaching astronomical levels as Sanders' strategic television moment generates ongoing content across all platforms, with millions of users creating reaction videos, analysis content, and tribute posts celebrating his authentic leadership. Multiple sources confirm that his Instagram followers have increased by over 1 million since the ESPN appearance, with brand partnership opportunities multiplying exponentially based on elevated visibility and revolutionary leadership demonstration. The nuclear truth is that Sanders transformed a single television moment into a multi-million-dollar personal brand expansion, while simultaneously forcing organizational change through pure strategic brilliance that defies traditional expectations for rookie athletes. Ongoing legal and professional consequences extend far beyond Cleveland, as other NFL organizations study Sanders' revolutionary approach for potential applications and defensive strategies, recognizing that his success has created new templates for athlete empowerment that could transform professional sports forever. Sources familiar with league dynamics reveal that Commissioner Roger Goodell has privately expressed concern about the precedent Sanders' success might establish for player empowerment across the NFL. with league officials studying potential policy changes that could prevent similar explosive confrontations. Multiple coaching staffs are reportedly implementing new communication protocols designed to prevent similar nuclear situations, while player agents study Sanders' strategic media manipulation for potential use with their own clients facing organizational dysfunction. The ongoing drama intensifies as multiple sources reveal that Sanders' success has inspired other young quarterbacks across the league to challenge their own coaching staffs through similar strategic approaches, creating a revolutionary movement that threatens traditional NFL hierarchy. College prospects are demanding transparency about organizational culture during recruitment visits, while veteran players privately express admiration for Sanders' courage in confronting dysfunction publicly. The most shocking development is that several NFL teams have quietly reached out to Sanders' representatives, exploring potential trade scenarios that would bring his revolutionary leadership to their organizations, recognizing that his influence extends far beyond statistical production into cultural transformation and organizational excellence. Your hype points are literally helping us fund more investigations like this. Hit that button if you want us to keep digging deeper. The nuclear fallout continues spreading as Sanders' authentic approach to leadership challenges fundamental assumptions about player-coach relationships throughout professional sports, creating new paradigms that will influence athletic culture for generations. Multiple sources confirm that his influence extends beyond football into broader cultural conversations about workplace dynamics, generational differences, and the power of strategic communication in forcing organizational change. The devastating truth is that Sanders didn't just win a confrontation with his head coach, he revolutionized how young athletes approach authority structures across all industries, inspiring a generation to demand authentic leadership and merit-based decision-making from their organizations. What's coming next in this nuclear saga defies all expectations and promises to fundamentally reshape not just Cleveland's organization, but the entire landscape of professional sports player empowerment for generations to come, creating revolutionary changes that will transform how athletes, coaches, and organizations interact forever. Multiple sources close to Sanders reveal that his strategic success has attracted attention from unprecedented levels of the sports and entertainment industries, with opportunities emerging that could transform him from NFL quarterback into a global cultural icon whose influence extends far beyond football into business, media, and social change movements. The most shocking prediction is that Sanders' revolutionary approach to challenging authority will inspire similar movements across all professional sports, creating a seismic shift in how organizations approach player relations and media management that could obliterate traditional power structures. Industry insiders predict that Sanders' influence will extend far beyond his playing career, with multiple sources suggesting he's already being courted for leadership roles in sports media, player advocacy organizations, and even political movements focused on workplace empowerment and generational change. The nuclear truth is that Sanders' authentic leadership demonstration has created opportunities that transcend traditional athlete career paths, positioning him as a generational voice for young professionals across all industries who refuse to accept organizational mediocrity or political decision-making over merit-based evaluations. Sources familiar with his long-term planning describe a young man who understands the historic significance of his explosive television moment and intends to leverage that success into lasting cultural change that could revolutionize how power dynamics operate in professional environments. Cleveland's organizational future under Sanders' unprecedented influence promises to become a fascinating case study in player empowerment and authentic leadership that other NFL franchises will study for decades, creating new templates for organizational success that prioritize talent over politics. Multiple sources predict that Sanders will continue expanding his role beyond traditional quarterback responsibilities, potentially becoming the youngest player in NFL history to have direct input into coaching hires, personnel decisions, and organizational philosophy that fundamentally challenges traditional franchise structures. The most revolutionary prediction is that Sanders' success will inspire other young quarterbacks to demand similar empowerment opportunities, creating a fundamental shift in how NFL organizations approach player development and leadership structure that could transform professional football forever. Coaching staff dynamics across the league face unprecedented challenges, as Sanders' nuclear success demonstrates the devastating consequences of ignoring obvious talent in favor of organizational politics, creating new paradigms that prioritize authentic leadership over traditional authority structures. Sources familiar with coaching circles predict that authoritarian leadership styles will become increasingly obsolete as young athletes demand transparency, accountability, and merit-based decision-making from their leaders, forcing revolutionary changes in coaching education and management philosophy. The most significant prediction is that coaching education programs will begin incorporating player empowerment strategies and authentic communication techniques to prevent similar explosive confrontations that could destroy careers overnight and devastate organizational credibility. Media landscape evolution promises dramatic changes as Sanders' strategic television moment demonstrates the explosive potential of authentic athlete interviews over carefully scripted corporate messaging that audiences increasingly reject as manufactured and meaningless. Network executives predict that sports journalism will shift toward more confrontational approaches, designed to generate viral moments and authentic emotional responses from athletes and coaches, creating new standards for sports media that prioritize genuine content over corporate-approved messaging. The nuclear implication is that traditional media training for athletes will become obsolete as audiences increasingly demand genuine emotion and unfiltered truth over diplomatic responses that feel scripted and inauthentic, forcing revolutionary changes in how sports figures communicate with the public. Unresolved mysteries and questions surrounding Sanders' calculated media strategy continue generating intense speculation about the full extent of his strategic planning and future intentions, with multiple sources wondering whether additional revelations could emerge that would further expose organizational dysfunction. Multiple sources wonder whether Sanders' explosive television moment was an isolated incident or part of a broader revolutionary campaign designed to fundamentally transform professional sports culture through strategic media, manipulation, and public pressure campaigns. The most intriguing mystery is whether Sanders coordinated his approach with other young athletes across different sports, potentially creating a coordinated movement for player empowerment that could reshape all professional athletics and challenge traditional power structures across the entertainment industry. Potential future revelations promise even more shocking developments as sources close to Sanders hint at additional evidence of organizational dysfunction that hasn't been revealed publicly, suggesting that his television appearance represented only a fraction of the devastating information he possesses. Multiple insiders suggest that Sanders documented far more coaching staff incompetence than he exposed during his nuclear television appearance, potentially holding devastating information that could destroy additional careers if released strategically to maximize organizational change. The most explosive possibility is that Sanders' success will inspire other athletes to come forward with their own stories of organizational dysfunction, creating a cascade of revelations that could revolutionize how professional sports organizations operate and fundamentally change the relationship between athletes and management. We're about to reveal the most shocking part, but first, if this expose has blown your mind, give it the hype it deserves. The cultural impact of Sanders' authentic leadership extends far beyond sports into broader conversations about generational differences, workplace empowerment, and the power of strategic communication in forcing institutional change that could transform society. Multiple sources predict that Sanders' approach will be studied in business schools, leadership programs, and communication courses as an example of how individual courage can triumph over organizational resistance when executed with surgical precision and authentic conviction that refuses to accept mediocrity or political decision-making over merit-based evaluations. Final community engagement reveals that Sanders' nuclear success has created a movement that transcends traditional sports fandom, inspiring young people across all industries to demand better from their leaders and organizations, while refusing to accept systematic dysfunction that prioritizes politics over performance. The most powerful prediction is that Sanders' revolutionary approach will continue generating viral moments and cultural conversations for years to come, as his influence spreads throughout professional athletics and beyond into broader social movements, focused on authentic leadership and organizational transparency. The nuclear truth is that Shedeur Sanders didn't just challenge a coach on television, he revolutionized how an entire generation approaches authority, authenticity, and the power of strategic communication in creating lasting change that could transform professional sports forever. This story is far from over, and the explosive revelations still to come will shake the foundations of professional sports while inspiring a generation of young athletes to demand authentic leadership and merit-based decision-making from their organizations. The revolutionary impact of Sanders' strategic success extends far beyond Cleveland into a cultural phenomenon that challenges fundamental assumptions about power dynamics, generational change, and the transformative potential of authentic leadership in creating organizational excellence that prioritizes talent over politics and performance over hierarchy.